My Aunt Carol called it a family meeting. That's what she said in the group text she sent at 9 p.m. the night before my grandfather's funeral. Family meeting. Tomorrow. Before the service. Elias's house. 8 a.m. Important. She didn't text me directly. My mother forwarded it with a single question mark, like she wasn't sure I was supposed to know. I went anyway. I drove 40 minutes in the dark, with Jade asleep in the back seat, her head tilted against the window, her mouth slightly open the way it always is when she's deep in a dream. I kept both hands on the wheel and didn't play any music. I just thought about my grandfather, about the way he smelled like cedar and coffee, about how he used to call me on Sunday mornings just to check if I had eaten. I wasn't ready for what I walked into. There were 11 people in that living room. Carol sat at the head of the table at my grandfather's table like she had already inherited the house and just hadn't told anyone yet. Troy was beside her, arms crossed, wearing a suit like this was a business transaction. My mother Ruth was in the corner chair, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the floor. Nobody offered me a seat. I found a chair near the window, pulled it close, and settled Jade beside me. She was half awake by then, blinking slowly, leaning against my arm. Carol looked at me the way she always has, like I was something that had wandered in from outside and hadn't figured out yet that it didn't belong. She cleared her throat. "Before we go to the service," she said, "there are some things that need to be decided as a family." She placed a folder on the table. I recognized the format. I'm an accountant. I've seen estate documents before, but this wasn't the official will. This was something Carol had typed herself. She called it a family agreement. It was a document stating that all decisions regarding Elias's estate would be made collectively by majority vote among what she called the primary family members. She had already listed the names. Mine was not on it. "We all know," Carol said, looking around the room but not at me, "that toward the end, Daddy wasn't always thinking clearly. He made some promises he shouldn't have made. We want to make sure the estate is handled the way he actually would have wanted." I felt my jaw tighten. Jade looked up at me. I put my hand on her knee and kept my face still. "This is a vote," Carol continued. "All in favor of using this agreement as the framework for distributing the estate?" One by one, hands went up. 8 of them. Troy voted first, loudly, like he was proud of it. My mother didn't raise her hand, but she didn't lower anyone else's either. Carol smiled. Then she looked at me for the first time. "You understand this isn't personal, Naomi. We just think it's better for everyone." I looked at her. I let 3 full seconds pass. "I heard you," I said. That was all. Carol moved on like the matter was settled, like I had agreed, like my silence was surrender. It wasn't. I need to go back a little. Not far. Just far enough for you to understand why that room felt so familiar. My father, Marcus Burns, was Elias's youngest son. He died when I was 11, a car accident, on a Tuesday morning, 3 blocks from his job. He was 36 years old. He had a coffee thermos in the cup holder and a grocery list in his jacket pocket, gone, before anyone could say goodbye. After that, my mother and I became what the family called Marcus's people, not Burns's in the full sense, not the ones who counted. Carol was Elias's oldest child. She had run the family's decisions for as long as I could remember, the holidays, the reunions, the phone chains, the funerals. She was organized and convincing, and she knew how to make exclusion sound like concern. Growing up, she never said anything cruel directly. She was too smart for that. It was always in the structure. The cousin sleepover Jade wasn't invited to. The family group chat I was added to 6 months after everyone else. The Christmas envelope with cash that had everyone's name on it except mine and my mother's, which Carol explained as an oversight while handing us each a candle instead. My mother never fought it. Ruth Burns had learned a long time ago to keep her head down in that family and be grateful for what she got. She passed that lesson to me without meaning to. For years, I received it. But Grandpa Elias was different. He never treated me like a footnote. He came to my college graduation when no one else from the family did. He called me on the Sunday after I passed my CPA exam and said, "Your daddy would have made a whole lot of noise about this, so I'm making it for him." He was the one who came to the hospital the night Jade was born, sat in the waiting room for 4 hours, and was holding a yellow balloon when I wheeled out. He saw me, fully, consistently, without condition, and Carol noticed. I think that's where the problem started. Not with the money, not with the house or the estate, or any document. It started the moment Carol realized that her father loved his youngest son's daughter just as much as he loved her children, maybe more, and that there was nothing she could do to change that while he was alive. So she waited. And when he died, at 79, peacefully, in the bedroom down the hall from where I was sitting that morning, she decided it was finally time to correct what she saw as an imbalance. What she didn't know was that Grandpa Elias had been thinking about Carol for a long time too, and he had not been idle. 18 months before he died, Grandpa Elias called me on a Wednesday afternoon, not a Sunday, a Wednesday. That was unusual enough that I pulled over on my way home from work to take the call properly. He asked me how Jade was doing. He asked if I was sleeping enough. Then he said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without asking questions until I'm done." I said, "Okay." He told me he had been watching what Carol was doing with the family money for years. He wasn't specific on the phone, he just said watching. He told me he had already spoken to his attorney, Leon Whitfield, and that everything had been arranged the way he wanted. He said the arrangement was private and that I should not discuss it with anyone in the family, including my mother. Then he said something I have turned over in my mind every day since. "When I'm gone, don't let them rush you out of that room. Whatever they do before Leon gets there, you stay. You hear me? You stay in that room." I asked him why. He said, "Because you're the one I trust with what I built, and I want you to have it in front of all of them." I didn't fully understand what he meant. I thought maybe he was leaving me a piece of jewelry or something sentimental. My grandfather was not a wealthy man in the way people talk about wealth. He had his house, a modest savings account, and a small pension. That was what I knew about. That was not all there was to know. I found that out later, much later. But the seed of it was planted in that Wednesday phone call, and I held it quietly for 18 months, the way he asked me to. I told no one. The morning of the family meeting, when Carol stood at that table and held her vote, I thought about that call. I thought about his voice. Don't let them rush you out of that room. So when Carol announced that the official will reading would take place at 2 o'clock that afternoon, after the funeral service, at the same house, I simply nodded. Troy looked at me like he expected me to make a scene. I didn't give him one. I went to my grandfather's funeral, sat in the second row, held Jade's hand, and cried quietly for the man who had never once made me feel like I was less than enough. And when the service was over, I drove back to his house, found my same chair near the window, and I waited. Leon Whitfield arrived at 2:15. He was a tall man, unhurried, with silver at his temples and reading glasses he wore on a chain around his neck. He carried a leather briefcase that looked older than Troy. He greeted my mother first, then me, then nodded at the rest of the room with the kind of professional neutrality that gives nothing away. Carol tried to take control immediately. "We've already had a family discussion this morning," she told Leon before he even sat down. "We reached an agreement about how we'd like the estate handled. I have a document." "Miss Vance," Leon said, setting his briefcase on the table, "I'm here to read the last will and testament of Elias Jerome Burns, as filed with the county probate court 11 months ago. That's what I'll be doing today." Carol's smile stayed in place, but something behind her eyes shifted. She sat down. Leon opened his briefcase, retrieved a document, put on his glasses, and began. The will was straightforward at first. Elias left his personal belongings, furniture, clothing, tools, photographs, to be divided among his children and grandchildren at their discretion. He left a modest savings account, just over $40,000, split 3 ways between his surviving children. Carol was nodding. Troy was already pulling out his phone, probably calculating. Then Leon reached the section on real property. The residential property at 1412 Dunmore Avenue, Leon read, including the structure and all contents therein, is hereby bequeathed to Carol Ann Vance, to be held in her name upon completion of probate. Carol exhaled, visibly, like she had been holding her breath for months. Troy reached over and squeezed her hand. I watched them. I kept my face still. Jade had fallen asleep against my shoulder again, her breath slow and even. Leon finished reading the primary will. He set it down on the table with careful hands. Then he did not close his briefcase. He reached back in. Carol frowned. Just slightly, just enough that I noticed. There is, Leon said, removing a sealed envelope, cream-colored, with a name written on the front in blue ink, one additional document associated with this estate. He held it up. The name on the front was mine. The room went very quiet. Carol recovered fast. She always does. What is that? She asked, and her voice had that particular tone, the one she uses when she's trying to sound calm, but is actually telling you that you've made an error by existing. It's a sealed document, Leon said, left by Mr. Burns with specific instructions that it be presented at this reading, in this room, in the presence of the family. That's not part of the will, Carol said. No, Leon agreed. It is not part of the will. Then it doesn't need to be presented here. Whatever Daddy left Naomi privately, she can deal with that separately. This is a family. Miss Vance. Leon's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. My instructions from your father were explicit. This envelope is to be opened in this room. I intend to follow those instructions. Carol looked at Troy. Troy leaned forward. What exactly is in that envelope? Because if this is some kind of... I don't know what's in it, Leon said. It was sealed by Mr. Burns himself in my presence 14 months ago. I witnessed the sealing. I have not opened it. That was when Carol made her mistake. She should have stayed quiet. She should have let Leon proceed. But Carol has never been able to tolerate a room she isn't controlling. She stood up. I want it noted, she said, loudly, looking around at every person in that room, that my father was not well in his final years. He was isolated. He was influenced. There are people who took advantage of his emotional state, and whatever is in that envelope is most likely a product of that manipulation. She paused for effect. I want it on record that this family does not accept any document produced under those circumstances. Troy nodded vigorously. 3 other relatives shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. My mother looked at the floor. I looked at Carol. I let her finish. I let every word land in that room. Then I said, quietly, "Are you done?" She looked at me like I had spoken out of turn. Because, I said, you just said all of that in front of 8 witnesses and a licensed estate attorney. I just want to make sure you meant it. Leon looked at me over his glasses. Something almost imperceptible moved across his face. Carol sat back down. Open it, she said, like it was her decision. Leon set the envelope on the table in front of him. He did not open it immediately. Before I open this, he said, I'd like to note for the record that we have a guest who arrived a few minutes ago and is waiting in the hallway at Mr. Burns's prior request. He asked that she be present for this portion of the reading. Carol turned toward the hallway door. Dorothy Pugh walked in. She was small, 72 years old, with white hair and reading glasses pushed up on her head. She had lived next door to my grandfather for 22 years. She came to every birthday he ever had. She was the one who called the ambulance the morning he had his first minor stroke 2 years ago. She was the one who sat with him on the porch in the evenings when the rest of the family was too busy. Carol stared at her. "Why is she here?" Troy said. "Because your grandfather asked her to be," Leon said simply. Dorothy found a seat near the wall without being invited to one. She folded her hands in her lap and looked at me with an expression that was soft and deliberate, like she had been waiting for this day, like she was ready. Jade woke up then. She looked around the room the way children do when they sense that something important is happening without understanding what it is. Then she looked up at me. "Mama," she whispered, "is this about Great-Grandpa's house?" "Partly," I whispered back. "Is he leaving you something?" "We're about to find out, baby." She nodded, satisfied, and leaned back against me. Leon broke the seal on the envelope. Inside were 2 documents. He separated them carefully, looked at both, and set one aside. He held the other up first. "This," he said, "is a trust agreement, executed 14 months ago, filed with the county recorder's office 13 months ago. Certified copy on record." He set it flat on the table so the room could see the official stamp on the header. "Under this agreement, the commercial property located at 3304 Halford Street, a property held in Mr. Burns's name since 1987, was transferred into a revocable living trust with Naomi Renee Burns as the sole named beneficiary." The room didn't make a sound. Troy's jaw moved, but nothing came out. Carol's face did something I had never seen it do. It went completely blank, like someone had erased her. Leon continued. "The property at 3304 Halford Street is a commercial building, currently generating rental income from 3 long-term commercial tenants. Its appraised value as of 8 months ago is $1,430,000. He set the document down. Nobody breathed. Then Dorothy said, softly, from her chair near the wall, "He told me he was doing this. He told me about it 2 years ago, the week after his stroke. He said he wanted to make sure she was taken care of the right way, the permanent way." Carol turned to look at her. Dorothy looked back without flinching. "He also told me," Dorothy continued, "about the loans." Leon picked up the second document. "This," he said, "is a letter, written by Elias Jerome Burns in his own hand, witnessed and notarized in my office 14 months ago." He looked around the room one more time. He asked that I read it aloud. I intend to honor that request. Carol's hand moved toward her mouth. Leon began to read. "To my family. I have loved you all imperfectly, the way parents and grandparents do. I have made mistakes with money and with people and with time. But there is one thing I have never been confused about, and that is who has shown up for me without being asked. Naomi showed up, every time, without asking what she would get for it. She drove me to appointments when my license was suspended. She filed my taxes for 3 years without charging me $1. She sat with me in the hospital when I had my stroke, and did not leave until I told her to go home to her daughter. She is her father's child, and Marcus deserved better from this family than what he got. I also need to say something that I should have said a long time ago. Carol has borrowed money from me 11 times over the past 14 years. The total, with the amounts I have in my personal records and the bank withdrawals I have documented, is $212,000. None of it was ever repaid. When I asked about it, I was told I was confused. I was told I was misremembering. I was told the money was a gift. It was not a gift. I wrote it down every time. The records are in the fireproof box in my bedroom closet. Leon has a copy. The room moved. Not physically, but something shifted in it, the way air shifts before weather changes. Troy looked at his mother. Carol had gone the color of ash. I am not writing this letter to punish anyone. I am writing it because Naomi should not have to fight for what I built for her. I am writing it because I watched this family make her feel small for 30 years, and she never once became small. She became an accountant. She became a mother. She became the kind of woman who drives 40 minutes in the dark because someone she loves needs her there. I am writing it because she deserves to walk out of that room with her head up. The commercial property on Halford Street is hers. The trust is legal and filed. There is nothing to contest. Take care of each other, I mean that. Elias Jerome Burns. Leon folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jade looked up from my shoulder. Her voice was small and clear and completely genuine. "Mama," she said, "did great-grandpa know that they were being mean to you?" I couldn't answer her right away. Dorothy answered first, quietly from her chair. "Yes, baby, he knew. That's why he did all this." Jade thought about that for a second. Then she looked at Carol. "You should give the money back," she said. She wasn't angry. She wasn't performing. She was 9 years old, and she was just saying the obvious thing. Troy opened his mouth. Carol put her hand on his arm. She didn't look at Jade. She didn't look at me. She looked at the table in front of her, and she stayed very still. I didn't say anything else in that room. I didn't need to. Leon gave me a copy of the trust document before I left. He had already filed the certified transfer with the county recorder's office 13 months earlier, which meant the property had legally been mine for over a year while Carol was planning her vote and preparing her family. Agreement and deciding how to distribute what was never hers to distribute. Dorothy walked out with me. She held Jade's hand on the porch steps and told her that her great-grandfather used to talk about her all the time. "That little girl has her great-grandmother's eyes," he used to say, "and she's going to be something." Jade listened with her whole body, the way children do when they understand that someone is giving them something they will carry forever. My mother found me in the driveway. She didn't say much. Ruth Burns has never been a woman of many words in hard moments, but she put both hands on my face, the way she used to when I was small, and she looked at me for a long time. "He loved you right," she finally said. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. In the weeks that followed, Leon's office confirmed what Grandpa's letter had referenced. The fireproof box in the bedroom closet contained a handwritten ledger, 14 years of loans to Carol, each entry dated, each amount noted in Elias's careful, old-fashioned handwriting. The family attorney reviewed the records. The figure matched what the letter said. $212,000. Carol did not contest the trust. There was nothing to contest. It had been filed and recorded over a year before Elias died, long outside any standard challenge window, and the documentation was meticulous. Leon Whitfield had been doing this for 30 years. He did not make errors. Troy called me once, 3 weeks later. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message that started with, "Look, we're family," and I deleted it without finishing it. My mother was included in something for the first time in a long time, not because of money, just because I made sure she was there when I signed the final transfer paperwork. I wanted her to see her daughter's name on something permanent. The commercial building on Halford Street has 3 tenants, a dental office, a small accounting firm, and a florist that has been there since 1994. Every month, I receive rental income. Every month, I think about my grandfather sitting on his porch in the evenings with Dorothy next door, quietly putting together the thing that would make sure I was never at the mercy of someone else's vote again. I still drive that same road to his old house sometimes. I don't know why. Maybe because it still smells like cedar somewhere in my memory. Maybe because there's a version of me that needed to return to it and confirm that it was real, that he was real, that what he did was real. Jade asked me last month if we could plant something in the yard of our house, something that would grow big. I said yes, without asking what kind. She chose a magnolia tree. She said great-grandpa would have liked it. I think she's right. He didn't leave me money. He left me proof that I was always worth fighting for.